"Well," says Martin, rapping for his glass, "God bless all here is my prayer." "Amen," says the citizen. "And I'm sure he will," says Joe. And at the sound of the sockring bell, headed by a crucifer, with acolytes, thurifers, boat bearers, readers, ostari, deacons, and subdeacons, the blessed company drew nigh of mitred abbots and priors and guardians and monks and friars. The monks of Benedictus Spoleto, Carthusians and Camaldolisi, Cistercians and Olivetans, Oratorians and Vallambrosans, and the friars of Augustine, Brigittines, Premonstratians, Servi, Trinitarians, and the children of Peter Olasco. And therewith, from Carmel Mount, the children of Elijah prophet, led by Albert Bishop, and by Teresa of Avila, Kelst, and other, and friars brown and gray, sons of poor Francis, Capuchins, Cordeliers, Minims, Observants, and the daughters of Clara, and the sons of Dominic, the friars preachers, and the sons of Vincent, and the monks of St. Wulstan and Ignatius, his children, and the confraternity of the Christian brothers, led by the Reverend Brother Edmund Ignatius Rice. And after came all saints and martyrs, virgins and confessors, St. Cyr and St. Isidore Arator, and St. James the Less, and St. Phocas of Sinope, and St. Julian Hospitator, and St. Felix de Catalice, and St. Simon Silitis, and St. Stephen Protomartyr, and St. John of God, and St. Feriol, and St. Loigard, and St. Theodotus, and St. Volmar, and St. Richard, and St. Vincent de Paul, and St. Martin of Todi, and St. Martin of Tours, and St. Alfred, and St. Joseph, and St. Denis, and St. Cornelius, and St. Leopold, and St. Bernard, and St. Terence, and St. Edward, and St. Owen Caniculus, and Saint Anonymous, and Saint Eponymous, and Saint Pseudonymous, and Saint Homonymus, and Saint Paronymus, and Saint Synonymous, and Saint Lawrence O'Toole, and Saint James of Dingle in Compostela, and Saint Columkill, and Saint Columba, and Saint Celestine, and Saint Coleman, Saint Kevin, and Saint Brendan, and Saint Virgidian, and Saint Senan, and Saint Facna, and Saint Columbanus, and Saint Gall, and Saint Percy, and Saint Vinton, and Saint Fiacre, and Saint John Nepomuc, and St. Thomas Aquinas, and St. Ives of Brittany, and St. Mission, and St. Herman Joseph, and three patrons of holy youth, St. Aloysius Gonzaga, and St. Stanislaus Kostka, and St. John Birchmans, and the Saints Gervasius, Servasius, and Bonifacius, and St. Bride, and St. Kiernan, and St. Canis of Kilkenny, and St. Jarlath of Tuam, and St. Finbar, and St. Papin of Ballymoon, and Brother Aloysius Pacificus, and Brother Louis Bellicosus, and the Saints Rose of Lima and Viterbo, and St. Martha of Bethany, and St. Mary of Egypt, and St. Lucy, and St. Bridget, and St. Attracta, and St. Dipna, and St. Ida, and St. Marian Calpensis, and the Blessed Sister Teresa of the Child Jesus, and St. Barbara, and St. Scholastica, and St. Ursula, with 11,000 virgins. And all came with nimbi and aureoles and galordiae, bearing palms and harps and swords and olive crowns, and robes whereon were woven the blessed symbols of their efficacies: inkhorns, arrows, loaves, cruises, fetters, axes, trees, bridges, babes in a bathtub, shells, wallets, shears, keys, dragons, lilies, buckshot, beards, hogs, lamps, bellows, beehives, soup ladles, stars, snakes, anvils, boxes of Vaseline, bells, crutches, forceps, staghorns, watertight boots, hawks, millstones, eyes on a dish, wax candles, aspergills, unicorns. And as they wended their way by Nelson's Pillar, Henry Street, Mary Street, Capel Street, Little Britain Street, chanting the introit in Epiphania Domini, which beginneth Surge Illuminare, and thereafter most sweetly the gradual Omnis, which saith, they subvenient. They did diverse wonders, such as casting out devils, raising the dead to life, multiplying fishes, healing the halt and the blind, discovering various articles which hath been mislaid, interpreting and fulfilling the scriptures, blessing and prophesying. And last, beneath the canopy of cloth of gold came the Reverend Father O'Flynn, attended by Malachi and Patrick. And when the good fathers had reached the appointed place, the house of Bernard Kiernan and Company Limited, 8, 9, and 10 Little Britain Street, wholesale grocers, wine and brandy shippers, licensed for the sale of beer, wine, and spirits for consumption on the premises, the celebrant blessed the house, and since the mullioned windows and the groins and the vaults and the rises and the capitals and the pediments and the cornices and the engraved arches and the spires and the cupolas sprinkled the lintels with blessed water and prayed that God might bless that house as he had blessed the house of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and make the angels of his light to inhabit therein. And entering the blessed, the viands he blessed, and the beverages, and the company of all the blessed answered his prayers. Adiutorium nostrum in nomine Domini, qui feci caelum et terra, Dominus vobiscum, et cum spiritu tuo. He laid his hands upon that he blessed, and gave thanks, and he prayed, and they all with him prayed. Deus cuius verbus sanctificante omnia benedictionem tuum e funde super creaturas istas, et prestat quisquis e secundum legem et voluntatem tuum cum gratiarum actione usus fuerit, per invocationem sanctissimi nominis tui, corpori sanitatem et anime tutelum te actore praecipiat, per Christum Dominus nostrum. And so say all of us, says Jack. 1,000 a year, Lambert, says Crofton, or Crawford. Right, says Ned, taking up his John Jameson. And butter for fish.